Mono Lake, California. High Plains Drifter Film Set, April 1973. Wednesday morning, 10:47 a.m. The town doesn't exist. Not really. It's a facade built on the shore of Mono Lake for a single purpose: to be destroyed on film. False front buildings, a main street, a hotel, a saloon, a livery stable. All of it constructed from scratch in 8 weeks by a crew of carpenters working 12-hour days. This is Clint Eastwood's second film as director, High Plains Drifter, a Western about a stranger who rides into a town with a dark secret. The script is dark, violent, cynical. Nothing like the traditional Westerns Hollywood used to make. Universal Studios is financing it. They gave Clint $5 million and told him to make whatever he wanted. They trust him after Play Misty for Me made 4 times its budget. They think he understands audiences, understands how to make profitable films, but they're nervous about this one. Too dark, they say, too violent, too ambiguous. The hero isn't heroic. The town deserves what happens to it. There's no clear morality, no redemption. Clint doesn't care what they think. He's making the film he wants to make, the film the script demands. He stands now in the middle of the dirt street, 42 years old, wearing the costume, black hat, black duster, black boots, the stranger, a character with no name who may or may not be a ghost, a supernatural force, a manifestation of guilt. The crew is setting up for a critical scene. The stranger confronts the town leaders, tells them what he wants in exchange for protecting them from the outlaws coming to kill them. It's a turning point in the film, the moment the stranger reveals his contempt for these people. Bruce Surtees, the cinematographer, adjusts the camera angle, checking light, checking composition. He's worked with Clint before, trusts him completely. They communicate with looks and gestures more than words. The actors playing the town leaders stand in position, nervous. This is an important scene. They want to get it right. Clint holds the script, reading the dialogue one more time, making sure he knows every word, every pause, every intention. Then he notices something. One line is different, changed from yesterday's line. You people are going to paint this town red. Every building, every fence, everything. Today's line, you people are going to paint this town, every building, every fence, make it bright and welcoming. Small change. 6 words different, changes the meaning completely. Yesterday's line is harsh, cruel. Red suggests blood, suggests violence, suggests the town will be marked for what it did. Today's line is soft, generic, removes the edge, makes it seem like the stranger just wants things to look nice. Clint walks to the script supervisor, a young woman named Lisa, who's been with the production since prep. Who changed this line? Lisa looks uncomfortable. It came from the studio, this morning. They faxed new pages. Why? The note said the original line was too disturbing, too violent. They want the stranger to be more sympathetic. Clint's jaw tightens. First sign of real anger. Where's the producer? Bob's in the production trailer. Clint walks off set, boots kicking up dust. The crew watches. They know something is wrong. Clint doesn't walk away from set during prep unless something is very wrong. The production trailer sits 50 yards from the set, a long white rectangle with air conditioning units humming. Inside, phones, fax machines, production schedules, budget reports, the machinery of filmmaking. Bob Daly, the producer, sits at a folding table reviewing call sheets. He looks up when Clint enters. What's wrong? Clint holds up the script pages. Someone changed the dialogue. Yeah, the studio sent notes this morning. Minor adjustments. Nothing major. Minor? Clint's voice is calm but cold. They changed the entire meaning of the scene. Clint, it's one line. And honestly, their point makes sense. The original line was pretty harsh. Painting the town red? That's dark. This version is cleaner. Cleaner isn't better. The darkness is the point. The whole film is dark. The stranger isn't a hero. He's a force of vengeance, He wants them to paint the town red because they're guilty, because blood is on their hands, literally and figuratively. Bob sets down his papers. I understand your vision, I do. But we have to work with the studio. They're paying for this. They get input. Input is one thing. Changing my script without asking me is something else. They did ask. They sent the note to me. I approved it. Clint stares at him. You approved changing the script without telling me. I didn't think one line mattered that much. Every line matters. Every word matters. You change one word and the whole thing shifts. The tone changes. The character changes. Everything changes. Bob stands, tries to calm the situation. Clint, you're overreacting. It's one line in one scene. Shoot it the new way. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it in post. We won't fix anything in post because we're shooting it the right way now. My way. The studio won't allow it. Then call them. Tell them I'm shooting the original line. Clint, call them, now. Bob hesitates, looks at Clint's face, sees something that makes him pick up the phone. He dials Universal, gets connected to the executive in charge of production, a man named Ned Tannen, young, ambitious. He's been pushing back on Clint's darker choices throughout pre-production. Bob explains the situation. Listens. His face gets tighter. He covers the mouthpiece. Ned says the change stands. He's not budging. He says the line as written is too disturbing for a mainstream audience. Let me talk to him. Bob hands over the phone. Ned, this is Clint. Tannen's voice comes through. Confident. Firm. Clint, I understand you're upset. But we have to think about the audience. We have to think about ratings. We have to think about what plays in Middle America. And Paint the Town Red doesn't play. It plays if it's done right. We disagree. And as the studio, we have final say on the script. You have final say on whether to make the film. You don't have final say on how I direct it. Actually, we do. Check your contract. Clint is quiet for a moment. He knows the contract, knows the studio technically has script approval, but he also knows something else. Ed, if you insist on this change, I walk. Silence on the other end. Excuse me? I walk off the production. Right now. You can finish the film without me. Find another director, find another actor. But I won't make a film where the studio changes the script behind my back. Clint, you can't walk. You're 4 weeks into shooting. We've spent $2 million already. You walk and the film collapses. Then don't make me walk. Restore the original line. Ned's voice hardens. Are you seriously threatening to walk over one line? Over 6 words? I'm not threatening. I'm telling you what happens. You want your version? You get someone else to shoot it. You want my version? You restore the script. This is insane. You're being unreasonable. Maybe, but it's my film, and I'm not making it your way. Clint hangs up, hands the phone back to Bob. Bob stares at him. You just hung up on the head of production at Universal. I know. He's going to call back. He's going to shut us down. Maybe. Clint, your career. My career is fine. What's not fine is letting studios rewrite my films. Clint walks out of the trailer, back toward the set. The crew watches him approach. They know something happened. Know it's bad. Clint walks to his chair, sits down, waits. The assistant director, a nervous man in his 30s, approaches carefully. Clint, are we shooting? Not yet. Should I tell the crew to take a break? Tell them to stand by. We'll either shoot in 10 minutes or we're shutting down. Word spreads. The crew whispers. What happened? What's going on? Is the production in trouble? Bruce Surtees walks over, sits in the chair next to Clint. Doesn't say anything, just sits. Solidarity. 5 minutes pass. The production trailer door opens. Bob Daly walks towards set. His face is unreadable. He stops in front of Clint. The phone rang 30 seconds after you walked out. And? Ned wants to talk to you. He's on hold. Clint doesn't move. Tell him to come to set if he wants to talk. He's in Los Angeles. He can't. Then he can wait. Bob sighs, walks back to the trailer. 3 more minutes pass. The crew is silent, waiting. This is unprecedented. A director sitting on set refusing to work, refusing to take calls from the studio. This doesn't happen. Directors get fired for less. The trailer door opens again. Bob walks out. This time, he's not alone. He's carrying a fax machine printout. He hands it to Clint. Clint reads it. It's the original script page. The line restored exactly as it was written. You people are going to paint this town red, every building, every fence, everything. Below the dialogue, a note typed in all caps. Script approved as originally written. Proceed with production. Tannen. Clint folds the page, puts it in his pocket, looks at Bob. How long did it take? From the time you hung up to the time this fax arrived? 8 minutes. Clint stands, walks to the set, looks at the crew. Let's shoot. The crew moves, suddenly efficient. Equipment in position, actors ready, everyone relieved. The crisis is over. Bruce Surtees leans close to Clint, whispers, "You were really going to walk?" Clint nods. Every word. Over one line? Over the principle. Today it's one line. Tomorrow it's a scene. Next week it's the whole ending. You give them one thing, they take everything. They shoot the scene, the original line, delivered exactly as Clint intended. Cold, hard, cruel. You people are going to paint this town red. The line lands like a threat, like a curse, like exactly what it's supposed to be. The scene works. Everyone knows it. You can feel it. That night, in the Daily's screening, the crew watches the footage. When the line comes, someone in the back of the room says quietly, "That's the one. That's why he fought." Word spreads through Hollywood. Clint Eastwood walked off set, made the studio back down in 8 minutes, restored his script. Some people think he's difficult, unreasonable, egotistical. Others think he's principled, strong, uncompromising. Clint doesn't care what anyone thinks. He just knows he was right. High Plains Drifter is released in August 1973. Critics are divided. Some love it, some hate it. The darkness disturbs people. The ambiguity frustrates them. But audiences respond. The film makes $15 million on a $5 million budget. Not a massive hit, but profitable. Successful enough that Universal wants to work with Clint again, and that line, "Paint this town red," becomes iconic, becomes one of the most memorable moments in the film, becomes exactly what makes the scene work. Because Clint was right. The darkness mattered. The harshness mattered. The specific words mattered. Change one line, and the whole thing collapses. 1976. The outlaw Josie Wales. Clint fires the original director 3 weeks into shooting. Takes over directing himself. The studio panics, threatens lawsuits. Clint doesn't blink. Makes the film his way. It becomes a classic. 1982. Honky Tonk Man. The studio wants to change the ending. Make it happier. More commercial. Clint refuses. Keeps the ending sad, real, true to the character. The film is commercially, but becomes a critical favorite. A film people discover later and love. 1992, Unforgiven. The studio wants to soften the violence, make the hero more sympathetic. Clint refuses, keeps the violence brutal, keeps the hero morally compromised. 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Every time the pattern is the same. Studios want to change things, make them softer, more commercial, more audience-friendly. And every time, Clint says no. Not because he's difficult, not because he's arrogant, but because he understands something studios forget. The details matter. The specific words matter. The exact tone matters. You can't make something great by making it safe. You can't make something memorable by smoothing out the rough edges. You can't make art by committee. You make art by knowing what you want and refusing to compromise, even when it costs you, even when it risks your career, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. 2004, $1 Million Baby. The studio begs Clint to change the ending. It's too dark, too sad. Test audiences hate it. Clint keeps the ending exactly as written. The film wins Best Picture because Clint was right. Again, the darkness was the point. The sadness was the truth. Change it, and the whole thing collapses. 2024. Clint Eastwood is 94 years old. He's directed over 40 films. Almost every single one faced studio pressure to change something, to soften something, to make it more commercial. And almost every single time, Clint said no. And almost every single time he was right. Because the lesson from April 1973 isn't about one line in one script. It's about understanding that art is made in the details, in the specific choices, in the words you use, and the tone you strike, and the darkness you're willing to embrace. Studios think in terms of markets and demographics and test scores. They think about what's safe, what's proven, what won't upset anyone. Artists think in terms of truth, what's real, what's specific, what serves the story, even if it scares the audience. And when those two visions conflict, someone has to make a choice. Compromise or walk. Most directors compromise. Take the studio notes, make the changes, keep the peace, keep working, and most of their films are forgotten. Generic, safe, competent, but uninspired. Clint walked, or threatened to walk, which amounts to the same thing. And his films lasted, became classics, became the kind of work people study 50 years later. Not because he was difficult, but because he was right. Because he understood that paint this town red is not the same as make it bright and welcoming. One is specific, harsh, true to character. The other is generic, safe, false. And art lives in the specific, dies in the generic. 8 minutes. That's how long it took for Universal Studios to realize they were wrong. 8 minutes from the time Clint hung up the phone to the time the fax arrived restoring his script. 8 minutes to choose between losing their director and losing their notes. They chose correctly, and High Plains Drifter exists because of it. With all its darkness, all its ambiguity, all its harsh, uncomfortable truth, exactly as it was meant to be. Because Clint Eastwood walked off set when they changed one line, and came back when they restored it. That's not ego. That's not being difficult. That's knowing the difference between right and almost right, and refusing to settle for almost. In Hollywood, where compromise is currency and everyone makes deals, Clint Eastwood built a career on one principle. Don't compromise the work. Not for money, not for relationships, not for career security. The work is sacred. The work is what lasts. The work is what matters. Everything else is negotiable. But the work, the specific words, the exact tone, the precise vision, that's not for sale. Not for any price. Not under any pressure. That's the lesson from Mono Lake in April 1973, when one line changed without permission, and one director walked away rather than accept it. And 8 minutes later, the line was restored, and the film was saved, and the principle was proven. Again, some things are worth walking away over, even if it's just 6 words, especially if it's just 6 words. Because if you'll compromise 6 words, you'll compromise 60, then 600, then the whole script. And then you're not making your film anymore. You're making someone else's version of your film, and that's not worth staying for. Clint understood that at 42, still understands it at 94. The work is sacred. Don't compromise it. Walk if you have to. Fight if you need to. Stand firm when everyone tells you to bend, because 8 minutes of discomfort is better than a lifetime of regret. 8 minutes of studio panic is better than a film that's almost right, but not quite. 8 minutes proved what Clint always knew. They need you more than you need them, if the work is good, if you're willing to walk, and if you know the difference between paint this town red and make it bright and welcoming. That difference is everything. That difference is art, and it's worth fighting for. Every single time.